On page 36 of this declassified Air Defense Command file, an intelligence analyst writes a sentence that changes absolutely everything. The analyst states, quote, "This flying saucer situation is not all imaginary or seeing too much in some natural phenomenon. Something is really flying around. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is an official military conclusion hidden deep within a stack of papers labeled 62-838-94-130. But the truly chilling detail is that secret report at the very end of the document, involving a British Mosquito fighter jet and a terrifying high-altitude chase over the North Sea. Before we get there, we need to look at how it all began. We have a massive file here. It is filled with military correspondence, telegrams, and sworn statements. Most people would look at these faded, typewritten pages and see only bureaucratic red tape, but we are going to read it like a detective. We are going to skip the tedious dates, the file numbers, and the routing slips, and focus entirely on the terrifying reality hidden inside. Let us start with August 4th, 1947. An airline captain named Alpheus O. Powell is flying a massive Constellation aircraft for Pan American Airways. He's en route from Gander, Newfoundland to LaGuardia Field in New York City. The weather is relatively clear. At 8,000 feet, his co-pilot, Walter White, spots something. White sees an object that looks like a deep gold color, its surface reflecting light. It is about 16 feet long, blunted at the ends, and moving at 175 miles per hour. Then Captain Powell sees it on his side. He describes it as having the length of a P-40 fighter fuselage. It is blunted at both ends, cylindrical, and has a bright orange hue. But here's the detail that matters. Powell states the object had a definite shape, and there was no gaseous dissipation. If it were a rocket or a jet, there would be an exhaust trail. There was none. The military notes that Powell has 4,000 hours of flight time. He's calm, he's intelligent, he has a fear of publicity, yet he reported this anyway. Hold on here, because this detail gets even stranger when combined with what we're about to see. A few weeks earlier, on July 10th, over at Harmon Field in Newfoundland, 3 mechanics for Pan American and Trans World Airlines are driving back from a fishing trip. These are men who know aircraft. They have worked around planes for years. One of them looks up through the windshield and yells for the driver to stop. They step out of the car and look at the sky. A translucent, silvery disk the size of a C-54 transport plane is traveling at a terrific rate of speed horizontally across the sky. Can you believe this? It is actually written in an official document that this object cut a straight path right through the clouds. The witnesses state it spread the clouds out for half a mile. It left a clean gap where you could see the blue sky, exactly as if a knife had cut it. The edges of the clouds were feathered, looking like a weld that had been cut in half. Behind this disk was a bluish-black vapor trail, 20 to 25 miles long. One mechanic described it as resembling the afterglow of a powerful searchlight immediately after it is switched off. They even took photographs of this trail. The next day, in Codroy, Newfoundland, 2 men are standing outside a store at dusk. They see a flame-colored disc with a lighter flame-colored trail. It is traveling at a very high velocity. The trail makes the whole object look like a cone. They are certain it is not a falling star, it is not a plane. A 12-year-old boy named Albert Sams sees the exact same thing. He says it was all lit up, a bright reddish yellow, moving at a terrifying speed.
It looks like a normal report, but when you read between the lines, you realize the military is frantically compiling these sightings from all over the continent. They're trying to find a pattern. Let us move down to Birmingham, Alabama. The date is July 6th. The entire city is in a state of absolute bedlam. The switchboards at the local newspaper are swamped. Police headquarters is flooded with calls. Hundreds of citizens are reporting something in the night sky. They say the objects are round and saucer-like. Some say they are moving at lightning speed. Others say they are hovering dead still. One woman, Mrs. Gordon Mize, describes them as balls of fire. She says they came at lightning speed, stopped dead in the sky, darted off again, and sometimes passed each other so closely they barely avoided a collision. She says they were as big as her dining room table. A police officer reports seeing 8 to 10 objects whirling around for several minutes. A former anti-aircraft gunner says he has never shot at anything moving as rapidly as these things were moving. Staff Sergeant Ira L. Livingston of the Air Corps provides a sworn statement. He was eating supper when his neighbor called him outside. He saw objects producing a dim glow of light, traveling at 500 to 600 miles per hour. He says they traveled in a definite arc, not a straight line. As soon as one was out of sight, another would appear behind it. They were absolutely silent. This is actually written in an official document. A military staff sergeant is watching silent glowing discs arc over his neighborhood at 600 miles per hour. What I'm about to show you explains why the Pentagon kept this file hidden for years. We turn to the testimony of Kenneth Arnold. This is the man whose sighting over the Cascade Mountains essentially started the entire flying saucer phenomenon. The military sent a counterintelligence corps special agent to interview him. The agent notes that Arnold is 32 years old, a family man, highly respected, and a skilled pilot who lands his plane in rough mountain pastures for his business. The agent writes, quote, "It is the personal opinion of the interviewer that Mr. Arnold actually saw what he stated that he saw." Arnold says he was flying at 9,200 feet, searching for a lost marine transport plane near Mount Rainier. The air was crystal clear. Suddenly, a bright flash reflects on his airplane. He looks toward Mount Rainier and sees a chain of 9 peculiar-looking aircraft flying from north to south. They are swerving in and out of the high mountain peaks. Arnold is confused because he cannot see any tails on these aircraft. He clocks them. He measures the distance they travel between 2 peaks. It takes them 1 minute and 42 seconds to cover roughly 50 miles. He compares their size to a DC-4 airliner he sees in the distance. He determines these tailless, saucer-like objects have a wingspan as wide as the furthest engines on the DC-4. Arnold is so perplexed that he opens the side window of his plane. He takes off his sunglasses to make absolutely sure he is not looking at a reflection or a mirage. He watches the entire formation pass the southern edge of Mount Rainier and travel all the way to Mount Adams. He measures the length of the formation. As the first craft passes the south crest of a ridge, the last craft is just entering the northern crest. He knows that ridge is 5 miles long. This means this chain of silent, flashing, tailless objects is a full 5 miles in length.
Hold on here, because this detail gets even stranger when combined with what we're about to see. After Arnold's story broke, a journalist and former B-29 pilot named David H. Johnson was assigned to fly over the same area and find these discs. He flew 14.5 hours, over 3 days. He was exhausted. He was ready to give up. Then, flying at 14,000 feet near Boise, Idaho, he turns his aircraft broadside and suddenly sees a black, round object in his field of vision. He thinks it might be a weather balloon. He radios the aviation communication station to ask if a balloon was released. They tell him no. Johnson turns his plane broadside to the object. He pulls back his plexiglass canopy. He grabs his camera and tries to film it, but through the optical viewfinder, the object is too small to see. He pulls the camera away and looks at the object again. He watches it roll so that its edge is presented to him. It flashes once in the sunlight, appearing as a thin black line. Then the object performs a maneuver. It begins a slow barrel roll, breaks it off halfway through, and rolls out of the top of the maneuver before disappearing. Johnson writes a sworn statement for the military. He draws a chart of the object's erratic, jerky, rising flight path. He insists he knows the tricks the eyes can play on a pilot, but he knows what he saw. He saw an object performing a completely impossible, erratic flight path. At this point, we can no longer call it a coincidence. In Twin Falls, Idaho, a man named A.C. Urey is standing near the Snake River Canyon. He looks up and sees a flying saucer skimming through the canyon, just 75 feet off the canyon floor. It is traveling at an estimated 1,000 miles per hour. Urey describes it as an oblong shape, like an inverted pie plate compressed from two sides. It is a light sky blue color, but on the side of the top hood, there is a red, tubular, fiery glow. The machine rides up and down over the rough hills and hollows of the canyon floor. Urey notes that this indicates a type of control much faster than human reflexes. He believes it is guided by instruments and powered by atomic energy. As the machine passes, it makes almost no noise, just a light swish. But the trees directly beneath it do not bend in the wind like they would for an airplane. Instead, the tops of the trees spin around as if they are caught in a vacuum. Can you believe this? A machine moving at 1,000 miles per hour, 75 feet off the ground, creating a localized vacuum that spins the tops of trees and making virtually no noise? The military included a completely opposite theory in this file. An attorney named Dan Nelson from Oklahoma City writes a confident letter claiming he has solved the entire flying saucer mystery. He claims that all of these sightings are simply sunlight reflecting off the shiny trim of automobiles onto the ventilation windows of the cars. He says the vibration of the car makes the reflections look like they are rotating, and the movement of the car makes them look like they are flying at high speed. He even claims that the aviators reporting these discs are just reflections of their own instruments in their airplane canopies. The military takes this theory down. They put it in the file, but they do not believe it. We know they do not believe it because of the summary document they buried inside this dossier. A military intelligence officer analyzes all the credible reports. The conclusion is staggering. Let me read the exact findings of the United States military from this classified document.
First, the surface of these objects is metallic. Second, when a trail is observed, it is a lightly colored blue-brown haze, similar to a rocket engine's exhaust. But because the fuel appears to be throttled, it indicates a liquid rocket engine. Third, the shape is circular or elliptical, flat on the bottom and slightly domed on the top. The size is somewhere near a massive C-54 transport plane. Fourth, some reports describe two tabs located at the rear of the object. Fifth, they fly in good formation at speeds always above 300 knots. And sixth, the discs oscillate laterally while flying along, a motion the military describes as snaking. This is actually written in an official document. They broke down the flight mechanics, the shape, the propulsion system, and the physical surface of these unidentified craft. They knew these were not reflections on a car window. They knew they were hardware. Hold on here because this detail gets even stranger when combined with what we're about to see in the final secret message. Tucked at the very end of this file is an unparaphrased cipher message from the Joint Communications Office. It is a secret message from the Air Ministry in London to the United States. The message details an event that occurred on January 16, 1947. During a normal night flying practice, a British Mosquito fighter jet is vectored by radar onto an unidentified aircraft. The unidentified aircraft is flying at 22,000 feet. The British fighter jet engages in a massive, terrifying chase. The pursuit begins over the North Sea, about 50 miles from the Dutch coast. The chase continues through the pitch-black night for 30 entire minutes. The Mosquito fighter jet pushes its engines to the limit, tracking the target across the sea.
The chase finally ends at 2300 hours over Norfolk, England. The British pilot makes 2 brief airborne radar contacts with the object, but the signals fade quickly. The secret report states, quote, "The unidentified aircraft appeared to take efficient, controlled, evasive action." Efficient, controlled, evasive action. This was not a weather balloon. This was not a meteor. This was an intelligently controlled craft playing a high-speed game of cat and mouse with a military fighter jet over the dark waters of the North Sea. The British Air Ministry ends the message with a chilling admission. Quote, "No explanation of this incident has been forthcoming." After all these pages, only one question remains. If the military knew in 1947 that these metallic, liquid rocket-powered, intelligently controlled disks were real, what else have they been hiding from us for the last 80 years?